Well, now we got to talk about the business that's making money in the wrestling business. I wonder if they're hooked up some way with Shopify. Can you buy a wrestling ticket for the WWE from Shopify?
I actually don't know. Nothing I'm
Maybe
aware of, but I don't
that
know.
may be something they've overlooked. We might call somebody in the office up there in Stamford. Get somebody on the phone. We'll let them know what's going on. But should we talk about SmackDown first, or should we talk about how that apparently now these heathen billionaires that run this multi-megalopolis corporation have now taken one of our American traditions and they've sold it to the Saudi Arabians?
AKA another reason to get mad at Tony Khan and what he's done with the opposition to that company. Why don't we start with SmackDown, because that happened on Friday. That was the first thing, and
oh, we're going to talk about the first thing before we talk about the second thing.
And there were a couple of things on SmackDown, at least, to talk about here.
Well, we're going to establish some parameters going forward for this programming that we do here, because now SmackDown is 3 hours, and they came out and said that Raw doesn't need to be any time. They can take as much time as they need. It was, I believe, a little over, maybe a couple minutes over 3 hours. We'll get to that on the debut, but this thing could be. So the point is, instead of trying to acknowledge in sometimes granular detail everything that happens on these programs that are now 6+ hours in total for the two of them, we're going to try to hit the points that people might be interested in and leave some of the rest of it lay. That's another thing is I think now they're doing with SmackDown what they were doing with Raw, where they've got a really, they got a nice little 2-hour show there. Be ashamed if anything happened to it, like they made it 3 hours and they had to stretch the same shit out. There was some element of that. And at the same time, also, I know they're making a lot of money for this, but you hear about viewer fatigue. The smaller promotions will obviously suffer at some point when, even when wrestling's hot, if you're trying to watch 6 hours from the WWE plus pay-per-view and then AEW for the hardy faithful, there's 4 hours or whatever plus pay-per-view, or 4 hours a week plus pay-per-view once a month is what I'm saying. And then somebody tries to watch TNA, or homeless people apparently with no jobs and nobody to speak to also try to include Ring of Honor. And at some point, you can't fucking do it, can you? We can't hardly do this now. And we're only really watching the shit that most people watch, the 2 WWE programs, which we kind of gloss over some of the slow spots, and the flagship show for AEW on the theory that it sucks so bad that if that's the best they can do for their highest rated show, why do we want to watch anything else?
Well, the thing is, I don't know that WWE is going to be adding a lot to these shows, maybe a segment worth of stuff more, but it seems like it's just going to be ring introductions taking longer, being split up by commercials. And I think a lot of other companies, maybe even Tony, but just in the past in wrestling, if they were told you had a third hour, you'd fill it up with stuff. They don't need to do that. And I don't know if necessarily they're going to be inclined to. It may be filled up with lots of promotional videos and backstage things, but I think ring introductions are going to go from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And it's going to be a lot of people standing in the ring, and then you get a commercial break, then you get a promo video, and then the other person comes out, and then you get another commercial break. It's going to be a lot of that, just drawing this stuff out endlessly.
Well, and the thing is, they don't need to do anything else. They're fucking, again, the all-time Arena Gate, beating the record they set last week or whenever the fuck. They're getting paid money. They've got streaming and television, cable and broadcast covered. They're making a fucking fortune in rights fees, all this shit. This is the perfect time otherwise than for the sake of people trying to watch everything and not fall asleep every once in a while. This is the opposite of the time where you hotshot. The exact opposite. When everything's doing it, just keep the stars on top, drawing the houses, and don't fuck anything up. And that's what they're doing because they're smart. But at the same time, we don't have lives enough or hours enough in our lives to break down all of this. So that's my New Year's resolution is once an hour or so, because that's the thing about the WWE programs. About once an hour or so, you're going to see some big stars do something important, and they're going to do it well. But on the other side of the street, that for 2 hours, you're going to be ducking monkeys flinging shit at you.
And again, if they had a third hour, if Dynamite was a third hour, I'm pretty sure you would see more luchadors. You would see more of the guys that you don't see on here that are on Collision, more of the women. If WWE and they have the third hour, they're not going to just fill it up with, all right, we need more people on the roster now. I don't think that's what it's going to be.
No, it'll confuse the issue unless it's somebody that they have a plan for and want to debut and, send down this path or whatever. But anyway, having said that, SmackDown on January the 3rd from Phoenix, Arizona. They started out with a package on Owens and Cody, where Owens has the Winged Eagle belt, and he's claiming that he's the real champion. If they had a referee that could do his job, he would have beat Cody, blah, blah, blah. And Aldis, was wanted back. This was the last week's recap. And Owens wants a title match where the referee can't prevent him from winning. And Cody's thing is, it's my responsibility to take that belt back, and I want a match where the referee can't stop me. And so they're going to have a ladder match at the Royal Rumble. And it was put together great. And it all makes sense. And I don't know, again, how badly was Vince McMahon holding them back the last few years when they're just fucking bing, bing, bing with the creative, and it's easy, it's very intricate, and it's complicated the way they put it together, but not to understand. It's easy to understand. It makes sense. It's easy to digest. You can follow it. And you want to see more of these people do these things.
It's not just the last few years. It really makes you ask yourself how different things could have been at any point in the last 20 years if Vince and Kevin Dunn weren't in the picture producing the show. Because look at Lee Fitting coming in there, scandals aside, the way he changed the look of that show fit with the times of it being so hot. It just feels live and everything's happening.
Yeah.
And Kevin Dunn was never going to get there. And as we've seen from, Mike Mansouri in AEW, Kevin Dunn's understudies aren't going to get there either. And not just him. I mean, TNA, that's the problem. It was like a factory. Whoever was Kevin Dunn's assistant, you can kind of get a job with any of the secondary wrestling companies. And now that we got an outsider and we've seen a different look, it changes everything. And with the creative, who knows when it clicked for Paul Levesque? If 20 years ago he had taken over creative, if it would have been as stimulating as it is now. But at any point, there's certainly a lot of points where it was clear that Vince lost his touch, but it was still WWE and they were still the biggest game in town, and that would keep them going. But creatively, there was a lot missing.
Well, then after that package, Cody comes out. And it's a big house, and he's over, and blah, blah, blah. And the basic story is I'm not cleared to wrestle because of Kevin Owens, but the Royal Rumble's only a month away for this ladder match. And then, boom, Drew's music plays. And here comes Drew McIntyre. And he comes in the ring, and there's the uneasy face-off, and then he hugs Cody. And you see how Cody's face, he's like, what the fuck is this guy hugging me for? And Drew's story is, I'm not here to, I can't do the accent. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you. You're about to screw up your life's work. The WWE is the best it's ever been, and you're the quarterback. But this other guy's pretending to be the champion. So you need a friend to watch your back. And Cody stopped him and, kind of put him over, Drew over in the babyface backhanded way. But Cody's like, I don't believe what you're saying. I think this is the point where this is it's going to break down. So what the fuck? You want to fight here right now? It escalated quickly. Maybe they were running a little long on time. But again, Drew did a great job. And then Cody's like, well, you want to fight right now? And the people are like, yeah, we want to see everybody fight. And Drew said, no, I'm telling the truth. I'm here to help you. But I'll tell you one thing, as he's leaving, he says, you need to watch your back. And instantly, Owens jumps Cody and starts kicking the shit out of him, and Drew walks off and leaves him. And Cody fights back, and then the agents and the referees come, and they have a big fucking pull apart. And this is great, because we want to see more of Owens and Cody, and now Drew, claiming to be... Drew's just great. He's just a miserable prick and trying to fuck with everybody. And in his own mind, he has the reasons.
I think he tweeted out he just wanted to see the tattoo up close, which is pretty funny, too. Good pull apart, also. And the fans are really into it. When Cody made his break and got the leap stinger splash kind of thing near the corner, people really popped.
And that's the people want to see these people fight. It's not like they're doing the endless chaos and pull aparts and run-ins and heat after and afterbursts and all the shit that they do in AEW constantly. It's that these are the people that are involved with each other, and that's who the fans want to see fight. It's not that fucking difficult. They've again, like I said before, they've made it very intricate, but at the root of it, it's just fucking common sense and knowing the wrestling business. Even in the state it's in today. But then they had shaky Nakamura against Andrade. Were you a connoisseur of this match?
No disrespect to either man, but there's only so much wrestling I was willing to watch this week, and this was one of those, I'm going to take a break now before the main eventers come back out.
Shaky's new outfit makes him look like a dominatrix with a bad hairdo. What the fuck is he wearing now?
How many dominatrix, I can't speak. How many dominatrixes
It's dominatory.
How many have good hairdos?
Well, it just depends on how much they're charging.
Is that an important part of the look, the feel, a good hairdo?
It depends on what you're paying for. But anyway, Shaky won.
Does anyone pay for a bad hairdo? Give me someone with a messy head of hair. Like, is that what someone...
I'll tell you what, there's a whole line of magazines devoted to that. But LA Knight came out after Shaky won and he got a big pop and he beat Nakamura up and Nakamura rolled out and LA Knight cut a promo and the fans are still with him. But goddamn, at least he got to run somebody off this time, but we've covered that. It's like, not getting a lot of fucking love from the top. And then Mia Yim and Piper. Glorioski. So at 9:00, Paul Heyman came to the ring. And I know it's the holidays, right? But did he have to eat 3 turkeys for Christmas dinner? He's bigger than ever.
Oh, will you stop it?
I mean, it looks like he ate one of those fried turduckins.
Did he look that much bigger?
Where it's a chicken inside a duck inside a turkey.
Okay, I don't know if he was eating that, but did he look that much bigger than the last time you saw him?
Well, it's also because since he's clean shaved, you can see more of his jowls, and he's got his hair, done black and slicked back and everything. So, maybe it's just the appearance of him fleshing out even more. But I'm sure
it'll never be over. It'll never be over.
Once springtime comes and he can get out and jog a little bit, I'm sure the pounds will just melt off. But anyway, he's setting the record straight. Monday night, we're going to find out who the real tribal chief is. And the story is that, I can't do Paul's promo. He's fantastic. It's great. But they had trained Solo to be the next tribal chief in the future when Roman was ready to step down. But, Solo seized the moment at WrestleMania and stole the Ulafala. and put together a band of filthy animals not even welcome in the United States. I don't know if Tongaloa might even be welcome in Japan. Maybe he just got in because he was part of the group. But anyway, he sold Monday night. There has to be a winner, and the loser, or has to be a winner and a loser. And he kind of promised Roman would win. And at that point, I was almost thinking, and then with what he said later on, I was almost thinking, are they going to swerve us and Paul's going to screw Roman? But we'll get there. But Solo came out and confronted Paul, who said, I'm 10 seconds away from pissing my pants right now. And now that they've got this issue over to the point where even Solo is not a fireball promo, but he's got heat, and they chant Solo sucks and fuck you Solo and all this stuff. And Solo basically says that he wants a favor from Paul, that he needs somebody to hold the Ula Fala that's trustworthy, that loves my family, that won't disrespect us. And that was, and when he said trustworthy and he was talking about Paul, I'm like, my God, you know this man. But basically they set up that if Roman wins, Paul would put the Ula Fala around his neck, and I'll acknowledge him. But if when I beat Roman, you put it around my neck and I own this and I own you, you're my wise man forever. So let me ask you this, Brian, because if you're like a Samoan from Samoa, you can be won in a wrestling match and forced to be an indentured servant. But if you're a son of a attorney and a Jewish guy from Scarsdale, you can't be won in a wrestling match, can you?
Yeah, I don't know how that stipulation. Again, it's tribal combat rules, so I guess it depends on who the supervising body is. Is it a non-sanctioned match? Is it a non-sanctioned match that's only sanctioned by the tribal board? And in which case, do they have Heyman's birth certificate? What gives them the rights to deal in human labor?
Do we know that Heyman has a birth certificate? Are we sure he was born, or was he just spawned somehow?
You see, you can't stop.
So anyway, that set up Monday is what that did.
Yes, it did.
And then they had Gargano and Ciampa against the Motor City Machine Guns. I'm sure it was a fine wrestling match because 3 of those 4 people are capable of having one. But purely dreary came out and distracted, and the Lucha faces tackled them, and the Machine Guns got double STFs, but the other ones came in and there was a DQ and nothing happened. And then I think the longest, or it seemed like it, the longest women's title match in the history of WWE television, Naomi versus the Refrigerator. And Naomi had Bianca in her corner, and the Refrigerator had Candy in her corner. And this thing started like, I don't know, with the package or whatever before the entrances, like 10 or 12 minutes to 10, and it went past 10 o'clock and through 2 breaks. And that's where I was thinking, they must be so confident that their overall average, the people are just going to stay. Was this a good match, Brian, or was this another one you were outside for?
I watched some of it. It, wasn't, these, if you remember the War Games match, the 2 that showed the least ability, at least in that match, were Naomi and Nia. I believe it was Naomi who hit herself in the face while hitting Nia with a kendo stick. So, I was kind of keeping an eye on it. Bianca was out there. She's a main eventer, so something could happen. I'm always expecting at some point Jade has to be reintroduced. And I'm glad I watched it because the finish and the moment got a much bigger reaction than I thought it would. And I don't know if we've realized just how over Tiffany Stratton has gotten with that crowd.
But that's the thing is... the finish got over great, the whole aftermath situation, but I just wish they'd have shortened up the front and got to it quicker, because I could have fast-forwarded even more quickly through this match. But
they had a lot of show. They had a lot of show to fill.
They had a lot of show to fill. Bianca beat up Candy on the floor, and the fridge stopped Bianca and tried to slam Naomi off of the ropes, but Naomi rolled through and somehow avoided killing both of them, slamming the fridge off the ropes. And then here came Tiffy, because it was Tiffy time, and she was dragging a referee with her. And Tiffy tells the referee, I want to cash in. And as soon as she does that, he turns around and she grabs the referee and throws him over the fucking railing and grabs her case back and runs over and hits Naomi in the head with a fucking briefcase, to where Jax gives her the bonsai drop. Boom, 1, 2, 3. And then suddenly there now the fridge and Candy and Tiffy are all celebrating. It was all a ruse, a plot, a charade. They've been bamboozled, hoodwinked, flim-flammed even. And then the fridge levels Bianca and is going to go to bonsai drop her, and then Tiffany hits the fridge over the back with the case and shit cans Candy out of the ring.
Big pop for both of these things.
And yes, and now the people, oh shit, who knew that they were dying for Tiffany Stratton to become a babyface?
You know, it's that reaction that you know, when you get it, it's so special. It's happening. It's really happening. It's happening now. Like that kind of reaction.
It's finally here. But at the same time, while Tiffy is shit canning Candy, Bianca has gotten up, and there the fridge staggers into her, and Bianca gives the fridge her finish. And then Tiffy grabs Bianca and throws her over the announce desk, and then she cashes in and jumps up and moonsaults the fridge, nearly bounced over the top rope when she landed on her. 1, 2, 3. And Tiffany is the new women's champion, and these people were going out of their minds. They were, again, you don't see that in a lot of cases these days, except for Rhea Ripley and a few assorted instances of the top ladies, but they love this shit.
Yeah, I was glad I watched this, because the moment of Tiffany Stratton cashing in and everything around it, I couldn't believe how over that was in the room. And then when I saw her again, we'll talk about Raw in a little while, when they introduced her in the crowd on Raw,
boom,
she got one of the biggest reactions there. So they've done something right with her.
Of course, now they were in Los Angeles on Raw, and she does look like one of the real housewives of Shenanigans County.
Will you stop it? I don't think you watched that show.
Well, I was a consultant on the first season. Anyway, and then we started the main event, and I swear I forgot to time it, but I'm going to say, from the time that they started the package, and then Solo and his bloodline doing the walk to the ring, and Jacob doing the promo, and he's great. And then the baby faces entering through the arena was like 10 minutes by itself, where, you know, with the Usos and Sammy and the yeeting and the waving. And then they started the 6-man tag with a big 6-way, but the heels bailed out of the ring and they went to a break. By the time they came back and you actually saw people in the ring doing something, it had been 20 minutes since the build for this thing started. So that's where you really see, I mean, it's not like nothing's going on. They're very good at hiding that nothing's going on. And it's an amazing looking program, but nothing's going on, right?
You know, the other thing is, and I think it's become a little more apparent in the last several weeks, and again, we'll talk about Raw when we talk about Raw, but you got Jacob and Tama and Solo, their leader, against the Usos and Sammy. Now, you could argue Jey Uso right now is over more than even Roman, but still, he's not the leader. And I feel like Solo, before this match with him and Roman, is kind of getting slotted a little lower in the pecking order. Because again, Roman's not in this match. Solo Sikoa is.
And that's, I think, well, and also because they're one short on their heel bloodline over there, poor old Loa. But I think, and we'll talk about Raw when we get there, as I said, or as you said, and I agree with you. But yeah, I don't know where they're going with the whole Solo group now. But anyway, this was a 6-man tag. It was a nice match. There was nothing wrong with it. There was no reason to write home about it, as Aunt Lola used to say. They picked it up in the final minutes. I mean, these guys are all pros, and it was a match to have on television. And then they kicked it up a notch, and they got some 2 counts, and people were into it. And then the Usos double super kicked Jacob and got a 2 count on him. And here came Drew McIntyre. And Jay hit the ropes and dove out on Drew. And then when he got back in the ring, Jacob hit the Samoan drop on Jay and got a 2 count. But he missed the dreaded ass to face. And Jay kicked Solo and speared Jacob and splashed Jacob. But Solo was the legal one, which they kept track of, and the announcers helped us, and he spiked Jay 1, 2, 3. And that was fine, and I see that, you're putting Solo over because he's in the Tribal Combat match on Monday. And this is not the match that I have an issue with. What I have an issue with is where Solo's bloodline or Solo's group or whatever the fuck it is going after Raw. But that was the down of Smack. What'd you think of this last one?
I guess it says a lot about what you said leading into the match. I kind of didn't care. I didn't think anything major was going to happen in this match, despite the fact that it has 6 guys that are in the main event picture. And I kind of didn't pay attention to it. I paid attention once Drew came out. I think Drew's the most intriguing guy there because you never know what the fuck he's going to do now. It's great.
Yeah, and also, it's going somewhere finally. And that's the thing is, I hate to say it, but we're the critical experts and the jaded industry professionals. For the average viewer, they're doing pretty much what they ought to be doing right now. Maybe they could kick it up a little bit every once in a while. But also with the announcing, we'll get to it again on Raw, but just the way the announcers are clearly telling the talent's backgrounds, why they're mad at each other, what title they cost the other guy, whatever the case. They're opening up for a whole new audience, and they don't want to run off and leave them. But at the same time, again, we might know all this shit, and it might be kind of blasé for us, but for the average viewers, they're obviously doing a show that the live crowd is jumping up and down for, and that's holding up numbers better than anything else on whatever form of television the various programs are on. So they got that going for them.
Yes, they do. That was SmackDown.